And we are now live on the 5th episode, boys. How are we doing?
Yeah, chilling.
Yeah, brilliant.
I
Ethan,
was
how are
waiting
you?
for you to speak. Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Ladies
It's
first, isn't it?
it's nuts to think we've done 5 of these now.
Yeah, we've done 5 of these and we still can't do a fucking intro because no one says hello.
Well, hang on a minute. Do you want to play the one you did a minute ago?
What do you mean? Alright, we're fine. Okay, I've still got the clip of me fumbling an intro. I might put that in later. There we go. And yeah, we're gonna go into addiction today, boys. I believe. I think Ethan wants to talk a little bit about vape culture, a little bit why he disagrees with it, maybe, and he also probably wants to go into a bit of TV license man talking, but we're not going to do that, because otherwise he will get pissed off. And then we could also talk a little bit about the news recently, but it has been extremely dull. So I reckon we'll stick on the topic of addiction and see where it takes us. So Ethan, if you want to get underway with your spiel on vapes.
Well, as everyone knows, yesterday. Actually, no, not everyone will know this, but this has been recorded the day after St. Patrick's Day.
Yep.
And so, of course, a lot of vaping was on display last night. It's a bit of a staple of going out for our age group at the minute. I am not involved. I may occasionally, I don't know, take the occasional hit, but I'm not. I wouldn't class myself as a vapor. Never owned a vape. Anything like that. And we were just briefly discussing this earlier as to whether or not we think it's a NOTS thing, specifically how bad it is, or if it's more like a general issue with our age group or even younger. Just got really sort of big issue with it. I remember specifically certain people from our age group going into the toilets and breaking down cubicle doors and vaping in the schoolboys' toilets during lessons.
What, in school? Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And this was like right at the start of sort of.
This is when you had a vape, it was a block. You know what I mean? It was a
Yeah.
big thing. Not the
That's when
disposable
Vape
ones,
Nation was a thing, and it was like
yeah.
that whole meme thing. But I just wanted to talk about it because it's a great case study of a situation where something's been introduced to counteract some things that's introduced to try and stop people smoking, but it actually ends up as a gateway, and it's made the situation worse. And there's a certain word for it, but I've forgotten. And so that's just a very interesting sort of topic to talk about, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's like when they're bringing in an alternative, it's not like it's a nicky patch where you stick it on yourself and you're not smoking anymore, you're smoking less. It's you're smoking something else that people thought was better. Especially, I think with the bigger, the bulkier old vapes, I think it was probably better for you. But I think with the new disposable ones that we're getting now, I don't think these are any good for you anymore. I think most people, I think most people are aware of it, but I don't think most people care. Or the majority of people in our age group who do go out. I think there's loads and loads of people who are against vapes, but obviously don't speak up about it too much. And it does seem, I mean, I came to Knots a couple of days ago, and it is very, very staple now for our demographic of almost like 21-year-old guys, girls, whatever, always having a vape. Everyone's catting for it. If you go to the club, which I don't do, I do very rarely. Everyone's got a vape. Everyone's, oh, can I hit your vape? Everyone's passing vapes around the club floor. And everyone's on it. Everyone's catting for it. And like you said, on the night out, maybe 1 or 2 puffs, whatever, is kind of light, but it's the people who do it regularly that it could have really bad health consequences for. But I think it's very similar to smoking in that regard. Like there's social smokers who'll do it on a night out, and there's people who do it in their sort of rooms by themselves and use it regularly. I think the issue may come when it seems like everyone's doing it always because the people who are socially smoking are doing it, and everyone sees each other smoking socially, so they think, oh, it's the new norm. So then they do it by themselves when everyone else isn't doing that. They're just socially smoking. Maybe. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of echo chambers it.
Like it makes it feel like it's more commonplace than what it actually is.
More normal, so people are more likely to do it or don't feel bad about doing it.
Yeah, especially when you've got a few drinks and you're seeing everyone doing it. It's a fun time. Oh, vaping's not too bad. Everyone's having a good time. And obviously, I think everything in moderation is fine, but it's one of those ones where if you have so many people vaping, and it is a lot of people in the club, like whenever you do go out, it's definitely a majority of people when you go out.
I think
on it.
it's honestly like 60-70%, maybe
It's
more.
easily over half. Easily over half.
Yeah, like everyone has one, or like at least within like the groups, there is always someone in like the group with a vape, at
and
least.
it's getting passed around to pretty
Yeah.
much
So
everyone.
like everyone's on it, even if they don't actually own a vape. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's just an interesting thing. Do you have anything to say about it, Barnes?
I don't know. It's just one of those, isn't it? Like, it needs sorting out. I've had a lot more experience than both of you two with vapes,
Mhm.
even though I'm on a good stretch at the moment.
Yeah.
But what you said earlier, where like the new ones, so like Nick Salt based ones, aka Elf bars, disposables that have very high nicotine content, because right, you know when you get like an actual vape, like a big modular vape, and you just get like default nicotine e-liquid,
Yeah.
it's very often very low nicotine content. So if you're puffing that every day, not great. You still have very much the potential to get addicted or become dependent on nicotine, but you're not actually taking in that much. The problem with Elf bars and all other disposables is like they're like hitting the legal limit for how much like nicotine you're allowed to put in. And I'm sure you can definitely find some ones that break the rules as well.
Yeah.
Like they're pretty commonplace.
Get them on Amazon.
But yeah, the Elf bars, like because they've got such a high nicotine content, and it's like the whole branding and everything about it. Like you go in, they've got them behind the counter, right? You see all the colours that immediately gets you, all the bright colours. Like even like other than like cola, like you don't see dark coloured vapes, do you? They're all
No.
bright red, bright pink, bright
They got
green,
flamboyant
orange. Yeah,
names like
they're a
yeah.
bit fruity, but like and there's always a new flavor. They've really hit the mark with that. Like they've always got a new flavor coming out. Every time I
Yeah.
went to get one, without a doubt, there's a new one, and
Yeah.
like it buys into your like consumer mind.
Mm.
Um, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll try that one. Yeah, okay, I want to try that one. New color, new flavor, and they are debatably just getting better and better. Like these things taste nice. Like
Yeah.
I know you guys might not agree with me or whatever, but the fact of the matter is like these vapes are nice. Like
It's
they taste nice. They make you feel good. You get the nicotine rush. You know, it's enjoyable to vape. It is,
Mm.
in my opinion. But obviously,
Yeah.
you've got to put a limit on it, and like the more you do it, obviously, the deeper the hole you dig it. But I saw somewhere like the the point where like your body technically gets dependent on nicotine is roughly if you're averaging an elf bar in less than 4 days, like one elf bar per 4 days. Now,
Mm.
I don't think I ever got worse than that. Like that's roughly what I was doing, like an elf bar every 5-6 days. But so many people, won't name names, but I know who they are.
I think we know who they are
Yep.
also.
They'll get them that night. They'll get them at 6 o'clock in the evening, and it'll be done by midnight.
Yeah.
Easily.
I was walking along the street back from gym, and there was a guy, and every step he took, every breath in he took, he was hitting his vape.
Mm.
And it was like the entire time I was behind him for like 10 minutes. He was
How-
hit the vape,
what-
breathe out, hit the
How,
vape,
how,
breathe out.
how's he like functioning? Like, what's he actually breathing? Yeah, like I see it all the time as well. Like, like walking past uni, everyone's got a vape in the mouth. Everyone. Obviously, nights out is a lot more prevalent, and it's quite nice to have one on a night out. I think that's probably the only time that should be acceptable in my opinion. You know,
everything serves a purpose, and that
Yeah,
definitely is an elf
like
bar's
if you're
purpose, right?
going out on like a night out, you're going to a few pubs, then it's the club. Get an elf bar. Yeah,
Mm.
£6. You know, should last you the night. It's a nice little social thing. Makes you feel good in the club. Gives you a bit of energy. Like it's great for that. But yeah, when you're waking up, immediately reaching for it, or like you just sat in your room like catting for it, and that's the thing, you do get the urges. Like I wouldn't say I've ever got addicted to them, but you know they get to you. They really do. Like I remember I sit there thinking about it, and it's like the fact that my mind is wandering to vapes is bad, and I think that was a wake up call for me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think as well, though, when you talk about addiction, it's got a very broad definition and an arguable definition. So it's one of those ones where you may not have thought you're addicted, but you may have been at points. Do you know what I mean? Like you
yeah,
said, and that's the whole kind of topic about today with being addiction, right? It's I think a lot of people, some people don't realize they're addicted, and then they somehow fall out of it, and they're kind of lucky. And other people who are kind of in denial about it. I spoke to a lot of people at university who are very in denial about addictions they have. Not even from our friend group, just from people where I live. Um, and yeah, they comment about addictions they have, such as smoking, whether it's you know marijuana or fags or whatever. Um, and
that they
it's
won't
always
recognise.
there's always an excuse, and the excuse is always kind of just objectively wrong. So like, it's never an excuse that is a justifiable excuse, right? It's always like, oh, I'm not addicted to cigarettes because I can afford them. I've heard that. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't, just because you can
Oh, that's
afford.
so
So
retarded.
stupid.
That
No,
is
but no,
so
but
retarded.
I'm not laughing because I've heard this guy and he was being serious. And you've got to say like, that doesn't mean you're not addicted, And I think that's a big thing, is people aren't aware of the definition, or the definition is somewhat malleable, to a point where people can be in denial about it because they can use a separate definition, right? So I think it's kind of important, if we have a chat about addiction and we talk about this kind of thing, if we can come to a conclusion on what we define as addiction and work off that, so that all of us can agree that, okay, we're on the same wavelength, this is what we think addiction is, and we are or we aren't about this certain thing, you know
Yeah,
Yeah, of course, yeah. And I think we live in a weird society where um, it's acceptable to be addicted until it's destructive to people outside of yourself. And that's the issue. And it's acceptable to be addicted if it feeds into the capitalist machine more than it's damaging it by you being, for example, destructive because you're an alcoholic all the time.
Yeah.
And the biggest sort of example of this, well, for one, is probably alcohol. Um, the fact that alcohol is completely unmoderated and is potentially so damaging, when certain other substances which are potentially much safer to be addicted to, in terms of, if we talk about the legalization of cannabis, someone turned to me and went, would you rather be addicted to pot or would you rather be an alcoholic? I think I'd choose pot in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think all of us
um
would, right?
yeah. But I think more importantly, if you want to talk about the vaping thing, is I'm really surprised it's actually allowed to get to the point where it is now, where speaking out against it is almost going against the status quo. And I feel so strongly about this that I want to almost call it satanic, what's going on at the minute. But
Mm.
it's you seem like such a prune. Is that right? A prude saying it, because
Yeah.
it's so embedded in society now and within our age group that if you're that like against it, then you stand out like a sore thumb. And don't get me wrong, like I get, yeah, again, I very occasionally will do it on a night out, but I think there's a difference between the concept of actually, like, okay, this is something that you're smoking and we don't necessarily know the health benefits or the health risks, sorry, and the act of doing it, and then how it's presented. And this is when we get back to the actual issue, I think, which is exactly like you said, Tom. All the bright colors, all the brand new flavors like Fruity Dragon Deluxe Oreo Supreme and something like that, right? Because that's not
That's what
much of an
like
exaggeration.
No.
yeah. it gets your attention, and like
Yeah.
especially our generation and even younger. Like honestly, I think like our generation probably isn't like the worst area for it, if that makes sense. It's even younger. Like obviously I wouldn't know because I'm at uni, but I feel like there's plenty of kids at secondary school and sixth form or college or whatever. You know, they're gonna be on it, and like they're gonna be so susceptible to it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it put like imagine when we were like 15, 16, and like someone goes, "Oh yeah, I can get you a watermelon flavored vape." I'm getting that every time. I don't care. Like I'm there for that. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I'm
So
on job with that.
there's a statistic here from a study from the Truth Initiative, and this is 2019, so would have vastly
Old.
gotten worse since
Yeah.
then. Yeah. And that's 27.5% of US high school students use vape products.
Yeah.
That is bad.
That's hardcore.
27.5%.
Yeah, that is bad. And if we, for one, you're right, it's going to affect them the most, but why is it affecting them the most? Because it's being marketed to children.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah,
target demographic. It's children and young adults. That is horrific. How is that allowed to stand, for one? It's blatantly obvious who they're being. Like, anyone with 2 brain cells can say that. Like, I don't know how that's not a legal issue. And secondly, if we compare it to cigarettes, because that's the simplest thing to compare it to, and let's compare it to the situation cigarettes were in, I'm not sure, 30, 40 years ago. So the health risks weren't 100% known yet, and
Or
it was
getting
allowed to
covered
be,
up.
yeah, or
Yeah.
getting exactly. There were blatant, um, like funded case studies, sort of deliberately lying to the public about the health risks.
By the cigarette
Yeah,
companies.
yeah. And additionally, the the marketing was not restricted like it is now. There wasn't restrictions on tobacco marketing products. And okay, let's compare that to the situation vapes are in now. I think it's worse now than what it was back then, because not only are we in a situation where we don't know the health risks again, there's not enough long term data for there to be definitive. No one knows what impact
How bad
vaping will
they
have.
actually are
Yeah,
in the
by the
long
time
term.
these
Yeah.
kids are 30, that's going to be unprecedented. The damage, people aren't going to know it because it's just
Well,
not been
to
around
be
long
fair,
enough.
we're already starting to see some of the damage. I don't know, like before I deleted TikTok, I saw like the horror stories of it. Um, there's those like people who have vaped that much in such a short time, like their lungs are absolutely like zilched,
Yeah,
and like they're
yeah,
bed bound. They've got like tubes coming out of them. It's like wow. And what
yeah,
they've been vaping maybe 2, 3 years, maybe.
yeah,
Like
and
the fact that you can do that much. Obviously, like if you did the
scary.
same amount of cigarettes, you probably would be worse. I still think, from my understanding of the current scientific data, I'd still say vapes are healthier, you know, debatably healthier per puff. I'll say that per puff,
I'd
per
agree with
puff.
that.
But
Yeah,
because of the advertising, the lack of moderation, and restrictions on that, and like how marketable they are, and yeah, partly because of the culture and everything about it, you know, they are more dangerous. Like when I think of fags, I don't have the hard view on them like I used to as a kid, but like they're a bit stinky, bit smelly, quite an
exactly,
old thing
exactly.
to do. Yeah, every now and again you might want to have some at the pub, or you might be a social smoker or whatever. And I've got nothing against people who do smoke, but like it's a bit of a taboo now. We've made it from a very, very, very common thing to a taboo, you know. But
I think
vapes are going the other way, and we've got to revert that and send that back into a taboo.
Could I just say, I think the best way to do that, I don't know how you guys feel about this, is when you look at a pack of baccy or a pack of fags, what do you see? Black tar lungs,
Yeah,
Exactly,
burning, like
exactly.
people in the hospital. So when I think of cigarettes, obviously I don't smoke. When I think of cigarettes, I just think of those images on the fag boxes, or the bags of baccy, whatever.
hmm
That's the first thing that springs into my head. And when I think of vapes, what do I think of? Watermelon, spritz, pot lollipop in a massive pink, container, whatever. And it's completely polar opposites of each other, but they're pretty much the same fucking thing. So uh, where I stand on it is, I think it's completely right what Ethan and you have been saying about the advertisement. And the next step is to go, fuck this pink and green and yellow shit. No, it does the exact same thing. You should have the exact same images on, because for all intents and purposes, it has the same negative implications from what we know as of current, if not worse. So
Yeah.
from where I stand, I just think, why is it legal to advertise them in that way when it's not, when it's illegal to do it for backy pouches or for cigarettes?
Or maybe not identical to cigarettes, because I don't think they necessarily have like the same. I don't think vaping sends your fingers black, or at least currently it doesn't. But like, yeah, they've got to trim down on like the advertising. Maybe like no bright colours. Have to like all electronic cigarettes have to come in like very plain, basic things. I mean, already they have to have the like nicotine warning on, but that needs to be bigger. Like I was thinking, like the packages is so small, so you can't do too much with it. Like if you get a backy pouch, you get like the big picture. Obviously, it's quite a big um, container of it, whereas like a little vape box that's like the size of your finger, pretty much. Um, so I don't know what they could do with it necessarily, but they've got to change it up. They've got to bring restrictions.
Yeah. What's interesting to me about this topic as well, and this is not quite on the same strain as addiction, is if we think about the past few years, what have the biggest sort of waste products been in our society? What can you walk down the street and see one of on every single street? It's a mask and a plastic vape. Those are ridiculously wasted, chucked around, these disposable vapes especially. There's all these horror stories of the amount of masks in the ocean. It's all these single-use, non-disposable plastics being shat out, and the fact it doesn't get anywhere near the amount of recognition it should do is ridiculous. This is, in my opinion, this is an absolute epidemic facing the future generations, facing young people, and I'm shocked that there's no attention on it at all. It's a huge, I use the word satanic. It is. You are targeting vulnerable young people and children with an addictive product with unknown health risks, and it's not spoken about. It's people have just sort of glossed over it. It's never raised in politics at the minute. I follow politics quite closely. I can't remember the last time it was raised as an issue. There's this ridiculous disconnect, and ultimately it's because it's so profitable. It's such a profitable industry now that I don't think it's going to be challenged within the near future. It's at a point where I think it's worse than the cigarettes were at their peak, because at least cigarettes were somewhat inconvenient to use. You want a cigarette,
Mm.
okay, well, okay, maybe
I don't
not.
know. I don't know, because obviously we weren't around when like cigarette use was at its peak, so it's hard for us to like actually say that. But
What I
Well, I
will
it's
think
got
comment
different
on,
problems with it. It's got
what I
different
will
problems.
say though,
I think it is different.
there's straights and there's roll ups, right? So like there's the two side of things, and most people, if they smoke cigarettes, will do roll ups regularly, right?
it's cheaper.
Because
Yeah.
it's a lot cheaper to do
Mm,
that.
I don't know.
Okay, sorry. Well, a
I
lot of
think
people
I've
at our age
like
group will have a pack of Baki opposed to having straights, is what I'm trying to
yeah.
say. Um, so I feel like that's one thing that's easier about elf bars is there's no I've got to go outside, or I've got to roll it, or I've got to light it, or I've got to be aware of people around me. Really, they just puff on it, put it in the pocket, puff on it, put it in the pocket. It's just an
Yeah.
easier. It's an
You can do it
easier
inside
activity.
as well. Yeah.
I
People
mean, I
do it
think it's
all the time
it's a
inside.
no-brainer. Like you said, while we weren't around at the time, I don't think we need to be. Ultimately, regardless of whether or not people probably were smoking in their homes and their cars back then because they didn't know the health risks, but
Yeah,
having a pack of baccy or a pack of cigarettes and a lighter, that is still more difficult to sort of, and a more conscious effort. I think a lot of addiction is the level of consciousness that you're doing something with, and
Yeah.
the level of
Yeah.
yeah, and the level of effort you need to put into having a puff of a vape is it's maybe it's not a
It's
huge amount less, but that
no. No. No.
distinction
I agree. It's
it does
less.
matter.
It's definitely more addictive. I think the nicotine content's up, and yeah, there's such a little barrier to doing it. As you said, like most people who smoke fags now would typically go outside for a fag. That's already a barrier. Oh, if you're rolling up, you've got to roll it. No, a vape, you've just sorted.
Yeah, might
Like,
have to wash your fingers after because they stink.
but in its defence, I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
You love your vapes.
That's my job.
No,
What?
no, not
I'm
in
joking,
defence of
I'm joking.
vapes. In defence of, well, I don't know, but like back in the day, let's say both your mum and dad smoke, probably smoking in the living room. You know, think about like how bad that is for like the kids or what, and them obviously. Whereas like if both your parents are on the vapes, it's not as bad. I don't think, obviously, because you're not getting this secondhand
I
smoke
don't know.
at all.
It's so hard to tell.
No.
I don't know the science of
Vapor.
it. Well,
Obviously, I'm coming from a very uneducated point of view here.
bro
But
science time.
vapor, this is bro science here. Vapor's surely less harmful, especially second hand, we'll say that, than smoke. Smoke is just like you should not be having smoking at all. Like that's bad.
I think so with cigarettes, and
Obviously-
especially when you look at, if you take down the wallpaper of someone who's smoked in a room for ages, it's all yellow and shit like that. Stuff like that you probably wouldn't get with
get that.
vapes.
No, you don't. Like
No.
fags are dirty. Fags are worse. Like I'm so sure of that. I think vapes. Thing is, we are ignoring the good parts of vapes in terms of they are helping a lot of people get out of smoking. But obviously, it is a fucking double-edged sword. And
I think the healthy ones of vapes are fine for that purpose, but when you start including elf bars and shit, then it's just honestly worse.
That's the thing.
I think
Like,
that's worse.
if you were like a full-time smoker and now you've got like a proper modular vape and you've got low nicotine content, like normal e-liquid and not nic salts, which is what the like elf bars use. Yeah, that's fine. You're not taking in that much nicotine. You're doing it to cut down, and I think it's very easy to make a managed decline. But yeah, obviously all these disposables. You know what? They should probably just ban disposables.
I was about to say that. Yeah, I
Just
can't
ban
think of a thing.
disposables. Like
They're-
if you
they're
want an
indefensible.
actual vape to vape, do that. But like disposables, yeah, gets rid of the a lot of the waste. Like Ethan just said, like single-use plastics and whatever. And yeah, they'll definitely stop people coming into vapes a lot more.
As well, you've got another barrier because you've got to look after your vape. You've got to change the coil. You've got to know what you're doing with a vape.
Yeah,
you've got to
be
get
a
your
bit
liquids
educated
in
on it.
and install them and stuff.
Yeah,
It's just
like-
little barriers.
Whilst I've had hundreds, well, not hundreds, bloody loads. No, definitely not hundreds, but I've had loads of disposables. I've never bought an actual vape. That's always been a barrier because in my mind it was like, oh yeah, at that point I'm accepting that I'm a vapor.
Yeah.
And I did not want to do that. But yeah, it puts another barrier in place. And whilst like if you are gonna go and do it, cool, you can, but it'll deter a lot of people, which is what you ultimately want in this, I think.
Yeah, you can't do any of the things with the colors or anything either because, if you want to change the taste, you're just changing the liquid or whatever. So you can't just magically change the color of your modular vape. That issue's completely
Yeah.
gone then. I think genuinely just ban disposable vapes, and that is basically the whole issue completely sorted, in my opinion. Obviously, there's still some bad things going with, it's still not great, but the majority of the common issues that we see and the marketing towards minors and young adults is completely gone. And to me, that is the most horrific thing, and I'm baffled that it's allowed to stand.
Yeah, and also just on like a very minor level, equally, if a kid's got it in school and you take away their vape, they probably can't afford to buy another 40-50 quid modular vape.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take the elf bar away, they're just gonna ask the parents for a £5 and then they'll get a new one. So there's loads of little aspects of having a modular vape that I think are just better than having just a disposable.
With the whole kid thing, you can hide these things so easily.
True.
Like literally, size. It's smaller than my finger. You know,
And you have
that-
really small
that's-
fingers.
yeah, must do.
Sorry.
Mate, these things are so easy to hide. I've hid so many at home from my mum and dad. But if I had an actual big one, obviously you can get small actual vapes, but like if you have a big one, it's much harder to hide. Parents are going to be less aware. You know,
Yeah.
simple as that. They make less smoke than the big ones.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
or less
Yeah.
vape or whatever. You know.
I mean, going back to the convenience thing, from my personal opinion, that is the biggest way of like instantly reducing the impact that something addictive will have on you, is just put a tiny barrier between you and it. All it takes is a few extra seconds of you just thinking, oh, what am I actually doing? Or so, for example, Instagram. This was a big thing for me, as you boys know. I was really hooked on Instagram, social media. That was sort of my big addiction. And just by deleting those apps, yeah, you can still access them really easily. You just type them into Google. You just type Instagram into Google, type Twitter into Google. But that extra like second and a half and the type in that you have to do was more than enough to
Yeah.
dissuade
That's a little bit.
my use.
Oh no, you're back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be fine anyway. But yeah, just if there's some way you can implement that across the board with the majority of these very, very bad for you addictions that are sort of very easy to access in today's modern age, what the big ones would be vaping, like we said, drinking because of just how, in fact, it's sold everywhere, and social media. And
Yeah.
luckily, drinking's not as bad as it could be in terms of like the youth at the minute.
I think
if you-
drinking's getting way better.
It
As like
is,
a social
definitely.
problem. Like
If
I
you get-
think
yeah.
a lot of people are going anti-alcohol now. Well,
Yeah.
I know you are, Murph.
Oh yeah, I've obviously been anti-alcohol for a while,
Yeah,
but yeah.
it's the ADHD nature of our generation, and so it's double-edged sword again. If because everyone's so ADHD now and they've got such bad attention spans, some of these things that require more effort to be addicted to will not be as appealing anymore. So that's sort of a good, you could argue that. But that also means that the things that are very convenient are much, much more addictive. And
Yeah.
and that would be my advice to anyone who's specifically social media, because it's something I can speak from experience. Just delete the fucking app. Like you're gonna tell yourself, oh well, actually I needed to send memes in the group chat to my mates or something like that.
You don't. You really
Just
don't.
that you're thinking that because you're addicted. You need to, and that's what
Yeah.
made me
It's
like
a
flip the
denial
switch.
thing.
It's denial, and as soon as you realize that, you think, oh shit, actually that's not a good reason. That is just me being addicted. Fucking delete it. Like, your mates aren't going to care that you've taken a bit longer to respond in the group chat.
Yeah. I'd love to move a segue straight into social media and addiction in that regard, because I think it's something that our generation and the generations to come are probably far worse than what we were or are. And I think it's just a really interesting topic because, like you said, I think all three of us have deleted a lot of our social medias recently. I've currently reinstalled them to do stuff for the podcast and to post on Instagram and TikToks, but I don't use them recreationally very often. And the reason being is I think all three of us have had better experiences with them being uninstalled than with having them. You think you love them. I thought TikTok's great. It's so funny, but you ask one for hours.
I love TikTok. Like I love it, and that's why I had to get rid of it. I haven't had it since December, maybe.
Yeah.
November, December. I think when we went on that like
Purge.
the purge.
Yeah.
But
Social
yeah,
media purge.
hey, thing is like I found alternative. I still got Snapchat, bloody story shorts or whatever. YouTube shorts, Instagram reels. When I do go on Instagram, even though I haven't got the app, now all the social medias are doing it. Oh, it's hard to escape. It really is hard to escape, and it's so like I did it today. Like I've been pretty hungover, weren't feeling great today. Went on YouTube. Who knows how long I was on YouTube Shorts today?
Give a rough estimate just for context.
I can find out.
Yeah, but you can say just a rough amount.
So
See,
just
it could
from
be bad.
experience, my sort of situation was the same. So addicted to Instagram Reels, get rid of that. YouTube Shorts automatically takes its place. And I've never had TikTok, but if I had TikTok originally, it would have been delete TikTok, get to Instagram, delete Instagram, get to YouTube. And you can't just delete one of these apps. If you really want to make a significant difference, you have to delete everything. And that's so daunting.
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. I think a big thing with us lot as well is like for most of the apps, like we were saying earlier with group chats and stuff, you don't feel like you can delete them because all your friends are on them, and it's just like you're a product of your environment a little bit. So if everyone's got Instagram, you don't think it's a bad thing because everyone's got it, and it'd be
Hmm.
weird if I didn't have Instagram, right? Um, and I think the best way if a group of friends was to try and think, maybe one of them thought they were addicted and they thought, oh, it's time to get rid of their social medias, is to try and do it as a group thing, as maybe a little challenge you can
Yeah,
do together.
yeah,
You're not going to stop talking because you're going to find a different way of communicating, and this is
That's
what
the thing. Like we've done that. Yeah, pretty
that's what we're
much.
also trying to do with transferring to WhatsApp a little bit more. Reason being, what the fuck are you going to do on WhatsApp? You're there to
yeah,
It
text.
is
I'm
the
not going
most
on WhatsApp
mum.
reels.
It's the most mum messenger service.
yeah. Snapchat is the
Messenger.
final bastion of social media
Yeah.
left to conquer. As soon as
Uh,
that's gone, the actual social media purge can
I
happen.
can't get
But
rid of it.
this is the thing, like, think about everyone that you know on Snapchat, you have on Snapchat that you won't have their phone number, you know,
Yeah.
and that's
Mm,
and
Not
that's
gonna
the thing. But,
message them on WhatsApp, am I? I don't know.
but then would you ever message them on Instagram? Sorry, on Snapchat. That's the thing. And I mean, especially if you're single and you're trying to talk to girls or whatever, then or guys, then you're like, oh, what's your Snapchat? But you could also be like, what's your number?
100%.
And
I think saying "What's your number?" infinitely better. What's your
yeah,
Snapchat sounds so kid-esque. Oh my
it
Oh,
god.
does,
it
it
does.
does, and it's
Oh,
nowhere near as intimate.
you've got to say what's your number. Yeah,
But
it's
that's the
got to
social
be honest.
norm, though. No, it is literally, oh, have you got IG or Snap? Watch your socials. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yep,
that's what it
yep.
is. It's so
This is
quick.
free game here advice here on the podcast. Free game for all young men. Do not ask for people's Snapchats or Instagram because that they would give that out to anybody. You know, you ask
Mm,
your mates for their Snapchat. You ask. It's not as intimate as phone number. So
mm,
if you're trying to pull, ask for their phone number.
yeah. I don't know. I just think, on top of all of that, going back to the whole addiction thing, I just think it's a fucking sad world we live in at the minute with social medias. I think with the whole Reels the Reels takeover, I'll say, because every
Yeah,
single social media has a Reels format because no one can keep their attention span. It's at a point now where you kind of, if you don't want to be addicted, you got to delete it at first. I mean, out of personal experience, I've found I deleted all my socials. I genuinely had such a better time. Sure, sometimes I went on YouTube Shorts because I still had YouTube. But for Instagram Reels, deleted Instagram, deleted TikTok. I had such a better time in life in general, did a lot more productive
hundred
shit, went for
percent.
walks, mental health was better, everything was better. Now I'm at a point where I can get them all back so that if I want to use them for a productive reason, I can, but I'm no longer will go on Reels anymore. I won't go on Instagram Reels because I went through that period of just, okay, you don't do that anymore, I've willed it into existence a little bit. But
Yeah,
fuck, I couldn't have done that by keeping them. If I would have kept them, I'd have fell back in the trap.
yeah,
Personally, you have to delete them. You have to just go
Yeah,
hard. Instagram's gone, TikTok's gone.
cold
Okay,
turkey.
yeah,
yeah,
cold turkey it. And admittedly, all of us kept Snapchat. Reason being, because we used it as a group chat. We have a group chat. We chat to everyone on Snapchat. And the biggest thing for me equally is we could all go onto WhatsApp. But it's people like you chat to some girls on Snap, you chat to some people from
Other
school who you don't
mates.
have their
Yeah.
number. It's like, and I think a
You've
big
got all the pictures and all the memories and all that. Snapchat is a nicer
yeah. It's not that
form.
bad
Like
either.
yeah.
WhatsApp is very just. I don't like WhatsApp,
I like
but
WhatsApp. I think it's good.
no, but that's what makes it like not retarded. If you get what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say, the fact that
Because
WhatsApp
it's
has
bad, it's
such
good. Yeah.
yeah, that's why it hasn't got all this added bullshit.
I wish you could have a setting on Snapchat where you could turn off stories and the reels and shit. So you could just use it as a communication platform because I would choose that setting because I find myself on Snapchat stories. One thing I've done though is because you can't, whenever you go on to check people's stories now, it goes straight onto your first person's. like story. Have you noticed that on Snap? So whenever you click on the bottom bit to go onto someone's story, it goes onto your most recent person's story. So whenever I find myself habitually clicking that button, it just comes up random person, don't know who the fuck that is really, just know their name, and it's a story. And then instantly I go, why the fuck am I looking at this thing? What am I doing right now? Do you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is this? Opposed to being checking my mate's story, and I just get rid of it. And I think a big thing with Snap as well, unfortunately, I think this is a big reality with most things. If the conversation or the person you're Snapchatting meant enough, you could ask for their number.
Exactly.
And if it didn't mean enough, and it was kind of just pointless sending a picture of your face like you did in fucking year 8, then that's the Snap. That's what the Snapchat is, and you can delete that and get rid of it. If you really cared for that person, you could say, "Hey, deleting Snapchat. I know we chat a lot. I think I'm just going to give you my number. We can chat on there a little bit more."
Just add you on WhatsApp, yeah.
And if it fizzles out because all the conversations were just taking pictures of your face to each other, then maybe you shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. Do you know what I mean?
Actually achieving much, mate. Yeah, and this is
forming
another
a bond.
thing. I really hope this isn't full algorithm based, but look how bloody horny these bloody Discover thing. Like woman, fucking tits, woman, bit of Putin, tits, woman. It gets you. They've
yeah.
I'm not afraid to say, it gets me sometimes. It gets me a lot.
It's satanic. Like, it actually is. Like,
they've got the algorithm on lock. They know how to get your attention.
They do, and it's not necessarily a bad thing all the time, but it depends how degenerate it is for one, and how degenerate you are for two. And all these things feed into each other. So it's like, okay, the limited attention span from these reels, okay, the sexual aspect of Instagram or these Snapchat stories, okay, and then the addictive side of both of them, and then perhaps the addictive side of something like vaping, and all of these little things come together collectively.
Everyone's got like an attention span of like 2 seconds.
Yep.
Can't focus on anything. Everyone's extra horny and fucking dull to pornography these days.
Yeah.
Sensitivity is completely blunted, isn't it? Yeah.
Everyone's brains are absolutely fried. You just go on and scroll. Oh, that's nice. Scroll. That's nice. Scroll. Like, oh my god.
But you know what? If you wanted to be like, there is another viewpoint you could take here.
Someone say devil's advocate.
No.
Conspiracy theory.
Right.
The government's doing it to us. That's what this is.
That's what's going to happen. Go on.
Oh yeah, that is probably true, but that's not what I was going to talk about.
Okay, go on.
So this is something I've heard people bring up, is these people who are like these stereotypical like alpha male influencers or whatever. Some of them will say something that is true. They'll say, "You are making my life easy." So I was listening to a Jordan Peterson lecture earlier, and he was talking about the dominance hierarchy. And in the dominance hierarchy, in the stereotypical competition between the genders, women are, and it's just straight relationships and we're talking about, women will look for the most competent men and the people who are in the top of the dominance hierarchy. And how does that dominance hierarchy form? It forms between the filtering effect and interactions between men. And okay, how does that happen? So you've got the most dominant men at the top, and they will scare off the other men. This is like a very animalistic sort of oversimplification, but in general, that's how it works. It's the animal kingdom sort of way of looking at things. And if you're at the bottom of the hierarchy, or near the bottom of the hierarchy, or actually anywhere on the hierarchy, and you start picking up these habits, you start becoming addicted to porn, to vaping, you just get a low attention span, all these other things, the gap between these hyper successful men who are, in some cases, the most sociopathic CEO types, like 7 out of 10 CEOs of borderline sociopathic or something, and this gap is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden you end up with this huge separation in society between people who are potentially borderline dangerous with how competitive they are, and everyone else, because they've fallen into this honey trap set by the capitalist sort of global economy, whatever trends, whatever, and that creates such social disorder. And in addition to that, it makes the the female side of things so much worse, because your selection of potential mates is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Of actual competent long-term potential mates is getting smaller and smaller, and the psychopathic, dangerous men at the top are not being held accountable by traditionally sort of the people who are traditionally keep them in line, which is the competitive men who aren't psychopathic. And because there's less and less of them, because people who do not have these psychopathic tendencies are more likely to fall to victim to these addictive trends, then these guys are just going out of control. And I think we'll slowly see this, and I think the female side of things will slowly clock onto the fact that they're suffering more than men, I think, as a result of this, because they are more exposed to the dangerous side of society, and there's less of the positive side to balance it out. In terms, and this is a very generalized sense of view. Like this is mainly talking about young women who will more likely mistake psychopathic people with people who have actual competence, because when you're young you don't have that experience to distinguish between competence and what's an act and a lie, and that leaves us in a situation as a society where we are just spiraling. Both genders are spiraling downwards, and people have been warning about this. Psychologists have been warning about this for years now, but it's not getting fixed, and we're going to reach a breaking point soon where everybody is miserable, and
Already
we're
done
fucked.
that one, mate.
Well, it's just going to get worse and worse. But the point I was trying to make is that if you want it to be sadistic, you could say, fuck them. Like, fuck these guys who are addicted. Fuck these guys who don't have the mental willpower to deal with it, sort of thing. I'm just going to delete all my social media, and I'm just going to grind. And all of a sudden, just being like somewhat normal in terms of your level of sort of resistance to these trends has put you at the top of the dominance hierarchy, because your
I fully agree.
competition isn't there anymore, and that makes your life easier. But obviously we don't want that as a society, but I am saying that is an incentive for people to start battling these things, because your ability to climb against your competition, maybe it's not manifested right now, but within the near future I think it's going to make a huge difference, and it's going to become slowly easier and easier to get above the competition because of these things.
Yeah, to give context to what you've said, I do agree with what you're saying. Obviously, it was a long spiel, but I do fully agree equally. The thing is with what you were saying, so we had examples of this, was such as like Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, right? I know everyone knows who they are, and I'm aware that some people may like or dislike them, but for whatever reason, what they did was they were hyper successful males who preyed on losers, right? They
Yep.
preyed on guys who had low self-esteem, this and that, the other, and they basically acted as the middleman for the women to get to these loser males. Sorry to call them loser males, but kind of is true. And they just steal the money base, essentially, right? That's kind of what they did with the webcam companies, right? And it gives every incentive for hyper successful males to prey on weak males. That's a better word, probably, than losers.
And they can prey on everybody, and that's why they're so controversial, is because they did exactly what I was talking about, where I wouldn't describe them as psychopathic. They don't have specific psychopathic tendencies, but what they are is intentionally sadistic in one way or another towards both genders, sort of being demeaning to women a lot of the time, whether or not that's a character or satire or whatever, that's a whole other discussion. But by doing that in combination with putting men down, these sort of loser men as you called them, then it's a perfect example of these people rising to the top of the dominance hierarchy by exploiting everyone else who's having a shit time. And they're able to exploit the girls because the girls see them as these competent, high value men, and they were able to exploit the men because the men are looking for role models, and so they're going to be drawn to these what they perceive as hyper successful people, regardless of if they're ethically and morally good or not. And also the men who aren't looking for a role model, but they are looking to feed into these addictive things, like you said, with a webcam company, etc., etc. And they can offer them this product. They offered them Hustlers University. I've never used it, so I don't know how good it was, but paying £50 a month for a Discord server with the promise of making money or whatever. It's the perfect example of what we've just spoke about. And you just can't let yourself become a victim of this system.
Yeah, and going on what you said, it kind of echoes a bit what Andrew and Tristan would say in regards to, a lot of the weak males that have come about in the last 20 to 30 years, and I think we can all agree that our society has a high proportion of weak males in comparison to other society or other generations,
I
maybe
think
previous.
I'd say it's weak people. I think that's a point that gets perhaps neglected somewhat. As men, we're going to focus on our own gender, like that's just how it is. But I think it is important to point out that the female side of things is just as bad, if not worse. It just manifests itself in a different way. It manifests itself with these fake standards on social media, with the amount of makeup that's being pushed towards young women, and if anything, it's worse.
I somewhat agree, but I equally think that just in regards to Andrew Tate, he doesn't really focus too much on weak women. He'll focus
No,
more on
you're right.
weak
Yeah,
men,
100%, 100%.
True, but I feel like he also indirectly contributes towards that. Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Like Ethan said, I think like the Tate, well, specifically Andrew, but you know, I think he feeds into this bullshit system of like absolute degenerates.
He takes advantage of them.
Takes advantage, but also has the support of them. I'm convinced 90% of his fan base are absolute fucking idiots.
I disagree.
Is that reflective though of his fan base specifically, or is that reflective of society? That's
people
the question.
on social medias as well. If you're on social media, then you're gonna know who Andrew Tate is. So you're gonna either be a fan or you're gonna hate him, right? Because that's how he is. He's Marmite, right? So, and if you're on social medias all the time and you're addicted to that kind of stuff, who are you as a person, right? Do you know what I mean? So I'm sure lots of people who aren't on social medias or who've never heard of him are either very successful or very not, independent of him, right? But just by way of being on social media and hearing of him, you're probably going to be a young child or a very impressionable young man or woman, right?
Yeah.
So that leads to that. And obviously, like, if you're a 30-year-old man, you're probably not going to be watching Andrew Tate's spiels and TikTok, highlights and shit, and then dancing.
If you're a successful business person and you see on Instagram this crazy guy splurting off whatever he can to make as much controversy as possible to gain fame, then you're not going to care because you're able to recognize, okay, this person's playing the system and they're taking advantage of the culture that they're existing within. Is that inherently bad or good? There's a whole other discussion there on the ethics of playing the game, so to speak. But ultimately, he has gotten successful in the same way that anyone could in our current environment by exploiting the current scenario and socioeconomic situation that we find ourselves in as a global community. Well, not a global community, sorry, a Western society. Because this is not a global issue, actually. Most countries are probably not like this outside the West.
No, I do agree. I think as well, just with Andrew Tate in general, how do I word this in a good way? I figure you can't hate the player, you have to hate the game. With Andrew Tate, what he's doing, it's something that for the majority of us, we can see what he's doing. Like Ethan said, he's playing on people, he's playing on people's emotions, he's trying to become viral through saying some shit. And I think any rational human being can see what he's doing. Well, no human being's rational, but anyone who's maybe a little bit more inclined is they can see what he's trying to do. They can see what he's doing. They can take the good bits that he's saying, and then they can either demonize him for the bad things he's saying, or at least take what he's saying with a little bit of a grain of salt, because they know that he's either generalizing or over exaggerating or playing on people's emotions. That's what he does in interviews a lot. So whenever you see a lot of TikToks where he's arguing, or Instagram reels, whatever you watch, where he's arguing with a bunch of feminists and that, he'll play on their emotions. He won't necessarily argue well, but what he will do is he'll manipulate them or use narcissistic tendencies and psychopathic traits in regards to like manipulative speech and trying to bait their emotions in about something that's a little bit stupid and make them sound stupid by doing that, not necessarily win the argument through statistics or through. He's not like a John Peterson. There's a clear difference, right? And I think we can all understand that. So I don't think you can necessarily, what you're saying, Ethan, I don't think you can necessarily hate Andrew Tate for what he is, because it's happening and it's in place, and there's a system in place that allows it to happen, right?
So I think fair play to him. He's done what he's done so well. He's played it perfectly.
He has.
Obviously, currently maybe not, but
right now
he's struggling. But I don't blame him for doing what he does, but I
There's
think
plenty of
he's
things you can
fucking.
criticize him on, but ultimately, it's like anything, as you can learn something from anybody, and being open-minded in that sense is how you develop, in my opinion. And okay, it is difficult to be open-minded sometimes, especially with people you disagree with, especially with people you view as inherently evil for their beliefs. But you have to recognize that no matter who they are, they may have something that you can gain from in what they're saying. And if you want to be ultra successful, you want to be inclined and you want to be able to critically think, you have to listen. And he is successful for a reason. He's gotten to his position with some level of business and emotional intelligence. He could not have got there if he didn't know what he was doing. And so if you don't have to want his lifestyle, you don't have to want all the cars, all the girls, whatever. But if you want to be, I don't know, a bit more well-rounded, you should be open to taking the things that are beneficial that he says or has done to heart a little bit, whilst also being able to recognize the bad things and stay away from them, just like anyone. And that's a skill that we critically lack as a generation and as a culture as well. Actually, no, I disagree with that. Just as a generation, I would say, because that links back to what we were saying earlier about people who are a little bit older have that sort of critical analysis and they're able to go through the motions in that way. Whereas impressionable young people or young people who have been failed by the school system with this lack of
Or they've
ability.
had only one parent, haven't had a father, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
any
and
manner of
they
thing.
turn to this role figure.
Yeah,
Um,
Everyone needs role models, and you
Or
can't
role
stray
model.
away from that
That was
equally.
the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing in regards to what Ethan was saying and critically thinking is the worst thing you can do if you're a Jordan Peterson fan is only watch Jordan Peterson. You should watch the people he's arguing against, right? So you should listen to what he says if you understand it and you grasp what he's saying, cool, and you adopt that as maybe the way of your thought process, and you adopt that into yours and take what's good from him and what's bad from him. But then you also go say you really don't like abortion. Watch a bunch of pro it would be pro choice, yeah. Watch pro choice rallies. Genuinely think, okay,
Listen to their argument.
and if you're really pro life, listen to them and try and argue them wrong. Yeah, you have to be able to completely dissect everything and say, no, you're wrong because of this and this and the reason. And if you can't, then maybe you should be fucking thinking about it more rather than just having a belief and then trying to justify it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's what people do. Dan would be great to have on for this, because Dan says this. He says that people form beliefs and then try to justify them rather than justifying beliefs, before they make them. Right. So,
big consequence of that, straight back to social media. The algorithm pushes things that you agree with. You exist inside this echo chamber, and so you're not exposed to sensible arguments from the other side. There has to be a sensible argument for why people have a political opinion, regardless of what it is. Otherwise, they wouldn't have it. Human beings are not completely stupid. If you think that, everyone else on the other side of the political spectrum is stupid and misguided, and I'm 100% right and they're 100% wrong, then not only do you not have the ability to critically think, but you exist inside an echo chamber almost definitely, because those people must have a reason to have gotten to the point where they are, and they must have a reason to believe what they do believe. Yeah, there are going to be some beliefs that are reprehensible, but even then, they've gotten to that point through a journey, and that journey may have been, for example, they've had a really, really bad upbringing, and all those things are a consequence of where they are. And you have to not only be you don't have to be compassionate. You don't have to let them off because of that, and especially certain beliefs. But it is important to bear in mind why people are in the position that they are in, not only so that you can avoid it in the case of very really reprehensible beliefs, but for things that are a bit more mediocre on the political spectrum, you can understand positions better and argue against them better, or perhaps even change your mind, that thing that no one does these days.
It is mad that people don't think they can change their minds, or or people don't accept it when people change their minds.
That's a nice challenge for everyone listening. When's the last time you changed a political opinion? When's the last time you were convinced to change a political opinion?
Don't change it for the sake of changing it, but I'll be honest, back when I was sixth form, before the last general election, I was obviously pretty pro-Tory. I admit I'm wrong.
Yeah,
You
I mean
know.
that's the thing. I mean, personally, politically, I can't. I have no party that resides with me at all at this point. And I wouldn't say being pro Tory is wrong, but I wouldn't say being pro Labour is right either. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
And we
but
kind
like
of,
even my like ideology and like certain things, I like. I used to be pretty, anti letting in, immigrants, cutting down on migration.
mm,
Probably if you asked me 3 years ago, would I support the Rwanda deal or the new thing they're bringing
immigration
in?
bill.
Yeah, I probably would have said yes. Complete opposite now. Complete opposite. I am so passionate about it now. That's my big thing,
Yeah.
Um,
Mm,
and yeah, like I admit that I'm wrong, and I've changed. But I feel like a lot of people wouldn't do that. They'd be like, nah, I've got to double down on, you know, keeping my view because I'm right. I've got to be right. If I can't admit that I'm wrong. And then also on the other hand, there's going to be some people like, oh yeah, but you believed it back then. It doesn't matter what you believe now. It's like, am I
mm,
not allowed to change my
Yeah.
thing? I admit that I'm wrong.
That
Or
that links to this idea of identity
yeah.
politics, where people's entire sense of self and personality is based on their beliefs. It's like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
I'm a Tory, that's my entire personality, or oh, I'm a Labour supporter,
I'm
that's my
Labour.
entire
Yeah,
personality.
yes.
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
like, nice job, you are a political tool. You exist to directly help politicians. Nice job. I
yeah.
desperately need the loo, so could we please pause?
Yep. Let's go for a break. We'll be back in a second.
Right, and we're going again.
What are we fucking waiting for?
We're going again, Barnes.
Oh, John.
Tab in.
Before you rudely interrupted me. Let's go on with Ethan, because Ethan, you've got a question for us that we haven't heard, so go for it.
I have. So, would you rather peak socially now in your university experience, or in like 10 years when you're like 37? That
10
links back to
years.
the whole 10 years, you think?
What do
What do you,
right? What do you
what do you
mean
mean
by
by peak
peak?
socially, bro? Yeah, like
Okay,
define that.
so let's imagine there's this simple trade-off where you can spend a lot of your time at university, perhaps going out all the time, part of all these big societies,
The uni experience, quote
the
unquote.
uni experience, yeah. Or do you want to dedicate that time to self-development and then be like, oh, I'll socialize when I've got some money later on. Like I'll have big parties, I'll got to try and go on some yacht experiences or whatever. Like, let's imagine it's a simple trade-off between those two. Which one would you rather have?
The latter.
So I might go in the middle. So I know Barnes is just saying the latter with no reasoning, but I feel like it is a mixture between the two, and it's hard to say one or the other without it's somewhere on the spectrum in between for me, because I think for the university experience, I definitely think you should still experience stuff at uni. You shouldn't go full cold turkey to all uni experiences, because if you don't experience them now, you'll probably make up for it later. So you shouldn't go cold turkey. Equally, there's no saying that me nor you will be alive tomorrow or the next day or the next day, right? So life can cut short at any point, right? You can just go to sleep and wake up and you're no longer alive. So to try and constantly wait until you're at a point, you may never get to that point, firstly. Secondly, you may pass, or you may have an illness later date and I was grinding up until that point, and then your life was just grind, die before I got any reward from that. So, and that's coming from someone who absolutely loves self-development. But like, you should I think it depends on what you want to do. If you really, really want to go out at uni, like, go for it. But for me personally, it's like I enjoy like self development. That's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy going to the gym. I enjoy going for runs. I don't enjoy going clubbing. I just don't enjoy it, so I don't do it. Right. So I feel like maybe it's somewhere in the middle for me. It's not like a direct answer. But then again, for would you rather, if we've got to justify it, I'd probably end up saying the latter, just by nature of I prefer self development anyway. It's going to leave me in a better position, and I know I'll look after my health, so that hopefully, if I don't get disease or anything, or any accident, or whatever, I can reap the rewards at a later date, right? But I don't think of like socially peaking as like a anything in my priority, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think of it as
I don't even
the
think
same
it's
level
like
as
really a
anything.
thing. It's a bit of
Yeah.
it's a bit of a vague, like.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you mean like your social group? Do you mean Instagram followers? Do you
How
mean
much time you spend socializing? How much quality time do you spend
I,
socializing?
I
Which is,
mean
but
more
which is my
like
main point.
I mean more
Yeah.
like okay, I'm consciously making the effort to dedicate this time to me being as sort of I'm living life, I'm having this crazy experience, like I'm going out and doing all these things, I'm consciously
Oh
taking
yeah.
time off, all that
Oh
sort
no.
of thing.
Yeah, definitely in 10 years. Fuck yeah,
I don't
Yeah,
one
think
hundred percent.
maybe this is narrow-minded, but I don't think that's even a thing I would do. Like go full balls to the walls, YOLO mode in that regard. I would, but in my own way. So like I don't think me living a life where I'm going out partying all the time, trying drugs, doing a shit ton of alcohol, just doing these crazy, what are quote unquote crazy BR societal norms. I don't think that's a life I want to live, nor would live if I got given the chance. I genuinely, on my mother's life, would rather be in the gym every day and live, I don't know, maybe even an office job than being on a beach somewhere drinking and partying all the time because it's just not a life I live or I want to live. Maybe if you throw gym and being productive on top of some partying, sure. But that's kind of how I would like to balance the life rather than. I don't see like this social hierarchy or trying to be the best socially as a thing I even really want to achieve. I only want a few really, really close knit friends who can get me through life and we can have a good, bond and relationship. I don't give a shit about partying personally. And I've said this last podcast where I don't understand going out because what the fuck are you celebrating? If I'll go out for camp for our mate's birthday, happily, I'll go out for your guys' birthday. I'll go out for my birthday. Probably wouldn't because I wouldn't like it. But my point being is, I'll go out for people's birthdays because I understand this is something we're celebrating. There's a purpose. Even Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, there's something to do. But just that constant party, what are you celebrating?
A random
Like,
Friday night. Yeah,
oh
buddy.
yeah, I guess we're going on the booze. Why? That's me though. I understand other people are different. And a lot of people probably see me as boring or think of me as weird by social norms, but that's just how I sit with it.
so you're not concerned about the uni life passing you by.
I don't sit and think these should be the best years of my life and I'm wasting them because I'm enjoying what I'm
If
doing.
the
And
if these are meant to be the best years of your life, kill me now.
oh, well done.
Preach.
I mean that's I don't know. Maybe don't stand on the same line as that, but for me it's like if these are supposed to be my best years of my life, first of all, I can't let anyone else dictate my life. I'm in control of my life for the most part. Um, so I want to be able to dictate that myself, and I think all humans want to dictate their own life. And for me personally, I don't find, like I said, enjoyment in this quote unquote uni life. Sure, society or the majority of people in society kind of get a little bit of FOMO, I think, of, oh shit, uni's supposed to be this and I haven't experienced this, so I need to go out drinking and partying because I've got the job soon and that's not how I want to live, sort of thing. Like, I want my day to day to be what I want it to be. And for me, that's just, I love gym, like I said, so I'll be at gym, I'll be doing my things, eating healthy. If I don't eat healthy, I'll feel shit. If I go out drinking, I'll do it very rarely, but if I go out drinking, I'll feel shit. So I don't want to do things that are going to make me feel shit. And no different to the whole delayed gratification thing. I don't find fun from instant gratification for the most part. So, yeah, there's a level of dopamine that you get from anything that's instant gratification. But for me, it has to be delayed. I have to work for it. I can't just, go party and then I feel great from that.
Yeah,
Because I'd literally I'd get drunk and then after I'm drunk I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what's the point in this? Why am I drunk on a Thursday night? Why am I with these people who I don't really like? I have really good friends in you guys. Oh, you guys aren't
yeah,
with me, and so why am I out in Leicester doing this drinking? Why am I drunk? Like, what's the point in all of this, right? I feel like it'd be a little bit of a distraction for me. Whereas for you guys, fuck it. If I'm at home with all of you boys, and this is what I love to do in summer, we'll all come together and we'll have a chat and we'll be with each other. That's what I enjoy the most out of anything. And for me, that doesn't need to involve alcohol. It's no social hierarchies. It's our little tight knit group. I absolutely love the time we spend together. And like Barnes was saying earlier, it's quality time spent together. And I don't have any fear of missing out of the uni lifestyle. No part of me is like, oh fuck, I really wish I joined this society when I was younger, then got into doing this, and I don't have that many friends at uni, and I don't have this level of I really need to go out to, the local nightclubs and stuff for me. But that's where I sit.
yeah.
It'd be
That's
interesting to hear you guys.
interesting. It is interesting. I feel like a lot of, and there's something I struggle with as well sometimes, is that I struggle with embracing the journey as opposed to the destination. And
Mm.
just realizing, oh, you know, I'm enjoying the gym experience. I'm not necessarily where I want to be, but when I get to that point, it's not like I'm going to be all of a sudden happy every single day. You need to enjoy the path that you're on, and the stretch of time it takes for you to get to where you want to be. And otherwise, you're just going to be miserable most of your life, and then one day you'll be rich and you'll meet all your goals or whatever, and then you're allowed to be happy. And that's just such a bad way of thinking about it, I think.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, and it's just not practical. I just feel as though anything in life you have to embrace and love the journey with anything you do, even if it's a shit journey, and love it for that.
Yeah.
Love it for the struggles, love the struggles. And that's a beautiful thing about like Mike Tyson or whatever, and talking about discipline, because he always said like discipline is doing something you hate and doing it like you love it. And by doing that, you almost you can gain freedom from that.
Mm.
Because, and this is another thing from Jocko, his big quote is discipline equals freedom. And it's the whole premise of, well, if you have complete discipline, you're able to do whatever you want regardless of how you feel, which means you're free to do what you want, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what I absolutely love about pushing myself out of my comfort zone, is it allows me to do whatever the fuck I want. If I want to go for a run, I go for a run because I can, and I can force myself to do that. And it's like, yeah, sure, I don't want to actually do the running bit. I want to get the endorphins and the delayed gratification of the run, but I'm able to put myself through the hardship of it to gain the positives from it, right? Which is the whole discipline argument. And for me, like, I much prefer that rather than chasing the weekend, chasing drink and social. And maybe that makes me a lot less social, maybe not even as competent in social scenarios as other people who do go drinking regularly. And you can say that and you can argue that, and I'd say that's completely fine. That's your life. But for me, I, as far as I'm concerned, discipline is freedom, as far as Jocko says, and I fully embrace that and the
And
journey.
ultimately, it means that on a day-to-day basis, you are probably on average happier because you're doing little things that you enjoy that other people would see as a chore, you know? And that means that every day you're seeing a bit of progress, which is good for your dopamine, your endorphins, and the rest of it. But also, things that would make other people miserable, you're more than happy to do, and you love doing them in some cases. And that means that
Mm.
instead of all your excitement throughout the whole week being concentrated on a night out on a Friday that you might not even remember and spend 100 quid on, it's, oh, I can't wait to go to gym today. Oh, I got a nice walk to uni this morning.
Yeah,
It's lovely.
it's living in the present. It's all about living in the present. I think it's a big Stoic philosophy in regards to just, like you said, not chasing these things like the parties and the drinking and the weekend, and things can always be green on the other side. It's about being present in the moment. And like you said, I love challenging myself, and I've become, and this has taken years. It's not something that's easy, and I don't think I'm better than anyone because of it. But I love challenging myself and trying to better myself daily, right? And it's not about being 20% better one day. It's about 1% every day. And it's like recently I've started doing this cold showers because it's a bit of a trend going around, and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go because it sounds fucking hard, and it's pretty hard. Um, but I love the idea of that I'm doing it, not the actually doing it. Like, it sucks, but once you get out, you're like, fuck, I did that, and it's like it's always proving your self worth to yourself. In essence, really, it's proving you can do things, and you can do anything that you put your mind to. And if you constantly reinforce that to yourself, it gives you confidence to go further and further in whatever you do. I never thought 4 or 5 years ago, when just after my surgery, I'd ever be able to play a sport or even run again, ever. And every single day through 1% increases and being able to, thank the Lord that healed. Ever since then, it's just constantly getting better and better and better in myself and for myself. And it's just, there's no better there's no better goal for me to aim for, right, than to just be better every day. And sure, it's not a linear progression, right? It's gonna be ups and downs. You're gonna have shit weeks. You're gonna be ill. You're gonna go drinking with your mates. That's balance, but it's all about that linear progression, or that long term linear progression, I'll say, which incorporates these ups and downs. But then equally, it's about being
Yeah.
mindful about that as well, and knowing their ups and downs, knowing when you're not doing what you should do, and kind of accepting it and understanding why you're not doing it. This morning, I woke up. and I drank 2 days ago. I felt pretty shit yesterday, and I woke up today, and for the first hour, I was just in bed, and I was like, I don't want to get out of bed. I'm comfortable. This is nice. I can just not go to gym, all these kind of things. But got up, just the minute I do one good positive task, it sets me up for the day, and that's what I love as well.
Snowballs.
With there's like an ex-US Marine or Navy guy who did a speech, which is a great speech. I can't remember it. I might link it down below. But it's about just making your bed.
Yeah, that night.
Oh my
I think
God.
everyone's seen that. You got to have seen that at some point.
It's
It's where they
probably,
showed that at school.
yeah, and it's probably one of the most simple but most beneficial things I've watched, because it's like, once you make your bed, you just, okay, cool, that's delayed gratification. The first thing, if you get up, don't look at your phone, make your bed. You've already hooked into yourself that you've done a task. There's one task you've done, and it wasn't difficult, but you accomplished it. Cool, step one done. If you go in a shower, if you have a warm shower, you're like, oh, I'm comfortable now. If at the end of your shower you just make it cold for 10 seconds, not fucking long, 10 seconds, you're like, fuck, that was hard. And then you come out, now you're getting warmer, you work cold, and it's like, it's that delayed gratification. Now you're more likely to do more tasks, right? And I found recently, because I haven't been doing the cold showers for long and other things like that, but recently, just trying to push that like delayed gratification, to push that snowballing effect of doing the tasks, it's been so much better for productivity. And I've found a lot more happiness from it. And I think when I used to search and try and find happiness, you can't find it. But when you don't try and search for it, you find it through other ways. I think
Yeah.
that's how, what I've found, at least. I'm not saying everyone should adopt that, but for me, when I look for happiness, you look for it in degenerate bullshit ways. You look for it the most possible reward for the least possible effort in most things you do. If you're just looking for happiness because you just want to be happy, why can't I be happy? But it's like, for me, if I earn it, that's when I'm truly, what I at least incorporate with happiness. That's when I'm most fulfilled,
Yeah.
at least.
You raised an interesting point there, where you sort of accidentally end up doing something that's beneficial, but you didn't set out with the intention of doing it. So people say that the job, or quite commonly say that the job they end up getting is the one they thought they'd have the least chance of getting. And it's this idea of, if you're not super obsessed over something, because obviously being determined and being disciplined is good, but there is a point where it becomes dangerous when it reaches obsession. And if you can skate this fine line between being disciplined and also like this sense of nonchalant sort of, if I fail, I'm not gonna completely beat myself up over it, because then it makes the situation worse, then that's probably the most beneficial position to orient yourself around. In terms of the watching your phone the second you get up, that's raised an interesting thought to me, that someone should just make either a guidebook, or write a book, or do a YouTube video or something. We could do it if we wanted. Just 10 little tips to just help the average millennial, or the average person in our situation. First one would be, when you go to bed, put your phone on the other side of the room and put your alarm on. Because if you get up and then go turn your phone off, and then you've already got out of bed, you might not lay in bed as often with your phone on. Just little things like
done
that.
The hardest step. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Delete your Instagram. You can still get on it, because you just go on Google Chrome or whatever, but your watch time will decrease by 50% or something by doing that.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. Yeah. Yeah, I reinstalled it for the podcast, and there's a noticeable difference already. It's not good. Gonna have to post the sort of advertisement for this one and then delete it again. But it is difficult, and I would encourage anyone listening to this, if you think you've got an addiction, or maybe not even if you think you've got an addiction, if you have an inkling at all that you can spend too much time on social media, the best way to decide if you're addicted or not, just delete whatever app you feel worst about for one day. Because I did that with Instagram when we all met up that time, and in November, and we were having like a nice healthy day, made a load of nice chicken together, and you guys pointed out to me, Ethan, you need to do this, just delete it, come on. And deleted it for one day, and I must have, it baffled my brain. I'm subconsciously scrolling on the phone without even realizing and pressing the where Instagram used to be. And so I would sort of zone out, look at my phone. Why have I opened Google Maps? Oh, that's where Instagram used to be. I've subconsciously tried to open it, and that's when I was like, oh shit, I'm addicted. And
Oh, for sure.
that's what I would encourage anyone to do. Just see, you might get a similar experience.
I mean, yeah, to try and get someone into that, it's like, look, if you delete the bastard, say it's Instagram, you delete him. If you can't hack it and you are addicted, you can just install it straight back, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's not that big of an issue. I think the biggest thing is the first step, the initial step of just doing it, right? And I mean, I'm an avid overthinker, right? I always think things are far worse than they're going to be. So what I've tried to do is to not think and to just do. I've took an impulsive thoughts mindset that Ethan has, which I admire a little bit.
It's good, I'm not.
Sometimes. But yeah, to just do things, because most likely it's going to be far worse in your head than doing it, right? The thought of doing it is way worse than what it actually is. So delete it. Don't even think right now. Delete Instagram. Okay, cool. And then just do a day without it. You'll probably
Yeah.
realize one of two things. Do you know what? That wasn't too bad. Or I really need that. If you think, oh, it's not too bad, cool, keep it deleted. If you think, oh, I really fucking need that, be mindful on it and just go, do you know what? I may be addicted. I may need
Yeah,
to find some
you've
help
learned
for this.
something.
And you've learned something about yourself. I think that's quite valuable. And like you said, Ethan, I actually really think that'd be a good idea to do little videos like that. Because I think we have some level of insight to give. I think we'd be arrogant to say we've got anything close to things sorted out, because none of us do. No one does. But well, other than Barnes, of course.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. I'm the epitome of self-discipline.
True. But I do think it would be helpful if we can try and find a way to give some help. I think that's a little bit what these podcasts are for anyway. It's for us more than anything. But at the same time, if anyone can find any help from it, I mean, some of it's complete bollocks that we should chat. But I mean, I like to think that some of it can be helpful and that some of it
Yeah.
can be good.
And it's not that we're these expert authority figures who are perfect in every way. And I don't want us to come across as arrogant or big-headed in any way. But I think what it is more so is that we've been through a lot of experiences for our age. And we've experienced and learned a lot of things for our age. And because of that, we are in a position where sharing some of those experiences and some of those mindsets or whatever will potentially help other people, and also it's good for us to reflect on it and to be mindful of it. So yeah, I totally agree with you there. Doing a link back to the vaping thing, yeah, in terms of addiction, it's like, okay, you need to stop this. How do I phrase this? It's recognizing the issue. It's exactly like you said, Tom, this label of I'm not a vapor, or I'm not addicted to Instagram. You don't even consider the issue. You don't even sit there and think about it. Oh, actually, this
Yeah.
might be the case. And so, just for a day, just try and go without it. Just for a day. Just, what's the harm? Oh, I've learned something about myself now. Oh, I know I'm fine.
Yeah. Like you said though, Ethan, it's pretty much like all addictions are a lack of mindfulness in essence, because they all start with denial, right?
Hmm.
So all addictions start with complete denial of I'm not addicted. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
maybe for Barnes, when you said I'm not a vapor, I don't
Oh,
want to be a vapor.
no.
That's you.
Full on denial. Like I've probably this academic year, I dread to think how much money I've wasted or spent.
Yeah.
But and like whilst I kind of used it in a way to like stop myself getting worse, like I didn't consider getting an actual modular vape, out of the fact that, because that is at that point you're accepting that you're a vapor.
Mm.
And I kind of did it to like, I don't know, fool myself a bit, even though I probably would be classified as a vapor.
Yeah.
I think it's a protection
Um,
mechanism, right?
Oh
You just
yeah,
don't want to be classed as that.
yeah.
But by
And I
doing
mean,
what you did, it could
kind
have
of
been worse.
it kind of helped me by doing
Mm.
that. I didn't get that, because if I did have an actual vape, because it's so much more economical, you do it so much more.
Mm.
The fact that I do have to go to the shop and spend £6 on an elf bar,
Barrier.
that is a barrier. But yeah,
It's the most difficult thing in the world to recognize your vices, and the most
Mm.
difficult thing in the world to reflect on yourself. because ultimately, if you recognize your vices, you are pointing to an area of yourself and going, "This is shit." And everyone's
Mm-hmm.
got them. Everyone's, I used to be addicted to CS:GO crates. That was bad. Luckily, I've not spent too
Oh
much money
dear.
on that, but
Mm.
I've probably only spent like 150, 200 quid on that over the course of how many years I've been playing CS. But the point is that I've luckily, I managed to realize I have an addictive personality.
Mm.
If I hadn't have come to that realization, I have no idea where I'd be now. That's why I stay away from all the drugs, all the vaping, smoking. That's not me being like, oh, I'm so high and mighty, look how healthy I am necessarily. It's I know I would be fucked if I involved myself in this.
Oh
And
yeah.
so, that's something that I've luckily managed to clock onto through these less damaging addictions like social media and very, very mild gambling.
Yeah.
And that's luck in essence that I've come to that realization before something bad happened, and that is why this sort of self-reflection and just being a little bit aware of your vices and just sort of, okay, well, I know these things are good about myself and these things are bad about myself, can really save you from some seriously sticky situations down the line.
I think it's quite interesting as well. I don't mean to big up our group at all, but I equally think that it's great to have a group of friends who don't mind telling you your vices to you. Obviously, don't just say, mate, you're a dick. You know what I mean? Have it in a constructive way. And obviously, some people struggle with that. But to be able to tell your mates, hiya, maybe you haven't realized this. Maybe I'm wrong in how I'm judging you now. But I think this might be an area of you that I've noticed could be something you can improve on. And if you come to a conclusion together that it's not cool, then it's not, and no one takes offense. You know what I mean? And we can walk away. Cool. I didn't mean to be a dick.
Yep.
I wanted the best for you. But
Yep.
there's times where someone maybe said to me, I act a certain way or I've done a certain thing that they didn't like. Cool. I can reflect on that. I don't take it against my pride because they've came and spoke to me about it. They've not said it because they hate me, because if they hated me, they'd ignore it and they'd distance themselves from me. If they like me, they're going to talk to me about it because they want me to be better because they want to spend more time with me or be around me. Do you know what I mean?
That's exactly what
Mm.
happened with social media and you two saying to me, Ethan, you may not have realised, but you need
Yeah.
to sort yourself out, fella. And I hadn't even thought about it until you guys mentioned it, and then I'm starting to notice it, and it's like, oh, okay, there's some sort of solid ground here. They've actually got a point, and
Yeah.
that is what a friendship group should be. And or if you don't have friends who are willing to be honest with you and who want the best for you, then perhaps it's best to
Get some new
reevaluate.
ones.
Yeah.
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 I think it has a big, like, at least for me, I think it has a bigger impact. If I could easily sit here and point out like 20 things wrong with me, but like
Mm.
when like one of you guys is saying it, it's like, oh, got to sort that out a bit more. It puts me more focused than if
Yeah.
like myself telling me it.
It
And
hurts a little bit, doesn't it? But in a good way.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
because
it stops you.
you're letting yourself down, but like when other
You're
people
letting
are
your
picking
mates
it,
down.
yeah, it's like, oh shit, and I
It
care
stops
about that
you.
more than myself at the moment. I don't know if that's the right mindset, but
I mean, that can be worked on, but
It,
that's fine.
yeah, it can be good and bad. It stops you as well inflating things that you might think are wrong with yourself that are actually fine. So there may be things where you're like, oh man, I have this insecurity and I think that's a core issue with myself. But then no one's mentioned it. And that's not because these people are scared about talking to you. That's because they actually do care about you and they would mention it, but it's actually not a problem. And so
Yeah.
you can allow it. It's that's an
Mhm.
insecurity that actually has no foundation. So that's another positive of it.
And just talking to your mates about that kind of shit, because the amount of times someone says in Discord, "Oh, I think I'm this kind of a person," in like a negative standpoint, and we're like, "No, we don't see
Yeah.
that." Um, so and vice versa, the opposite way, people can say they don't think they're a certain way when they are, and that's them being in denial, maybe, or maybe we're wrong. But equally so, just getting the conversation out there, as long as a friend group you're able to not take it personally, not take a pride hit, and able to reflect on it and just conversate. It's not an argument, it's a conversation about it. I think that's when you've got a really nice healthy balance within your friend group. I think that's also why relating it back to that point earlier about the whole social hierarchy, that's why I prefer a little tight knit group of people who I can trust, who I can talk to, I can reflect with, because you don't want a massive group of people who they don't know you that well. So some people will tell you you're this when you're not, but you just don't spend enough time with them, and you get a different idea about yourself. If you spend a good amount of time with a very few amount of people, you can really understand a lot about yourself and progress a lot, I think. And mainly just being open minded and mindful is maybe the best way forward with that.
So that raises an interesting question. How do you think you would find a group like that?
Oh, what in regards to someone who has no friends or has a
Or
lack
has
of friend
friends
base?
or has friends who aren't necessarily constructive, or who perhaps they have a toxic relationship with, perhaps it's a bad friend group. How would you recommend they find those close-knit people who share similar values to them, where it's going to be a constructive sort of symbiotic relationship?
I think you start by trying it with the ones you've got. So you chat with them, maybe a deep conversation. Quite often, it's very good to do this late at night or after a few drinks because the barriers with conversations are lowered, which means you can be a little bit mindful or reflect with each other. I think that's a good start if you're going to do it with your own friend group. Um, if it comes with a massive wall of self-defense mechanism from them or you, either be mindful on yourself or speak to them about it. And if you're not getting anything from them, and it's just, and in yourself that they're just being prideful and they're not being open to a conversation like it, that's when you have to think to yourself, maybe this isn't someone I want to spend the most time with. um and then in regards to, I'd like to hope most people would have at least one family member they could turn to, and let's not disregard that family are no different to friends in that regard, but you can speak to them about things. I know a lot of people, some people are very close with their family, some people are distant with their family and have closer friends than their family members, right? So everyone's different, but I'd say try it with your really close mates or family members. If neither of that works, maybe you just have to solo it for a little bit. I genuinely believe you will attract the right people if you keep on your direction, because you're going to want to find friends eventually, and you're going to find people around you. If you're doing the right thing and you're how you are, you'll attract someone similar to you eventually, whether that's through work, through going to the gym, putting yourself out there. I also think people who don't have a friend group, say, I'd prefer, if it's me, and this is a hard decision I would have to make at the time, if I had a toxic friend group, leave them entirely and then just go into the world solo. You're a social animal. You're eventually going to make yourself put yourself out more to have more friends. But what you're going to do is you're going to try and find better ones. But what I'd much rather do is put myself out of my comfort zone and force myself to find new and better friends than to stick with my toxic friend group as it is. So I'd say potentially it's just about trying it with your friend group and your family members. If that doesn't work, honestly, cut ties. I'm not with your family, but cut ties with your friend group. Put yourself out there and say, look, fuck it, I'm going to do this solo. And eventually you will put yourself out there more. You will find those people. I don't think you're going to become an incel. Do you know what I mean? You're a social creature, right? So eventually you will find at least, say for instance, you had a friend group who are from school and they're all institutionalized to think like you're still in school. Ditch them, start going to the gym, make some friends at gym. Some people at gym may have a more open mindset, or at least have a little better experience than people from school. Maybe not, but it's something you kind of have to try if you don't have that base available for you, I think. I don't know how you guys think on that.
It's going to be difficult for some people because, for one, pretty much with any personal issue, the hardest step is that first step. Exactly like we said with social media. It's interesting how all this stuff is so linked together, isn't it? Like the psychology behind it always sort of has these overarching blends.
We're not that complex.
Honestly, we're not. Like, things will pretty much go back to some foundation at some point, and it is the first step. So, okay, whether that's the conscious effort of making this recognition of the situation, or just deleting whatever sort of vice is, whatever social media, whatever. But in this case, it would be, I suppose, like you said, um, having that initial point of contact, or if not that, cutting off the what's the word? Cutting out the cancer, so to speak.
Yeah, kind of thing.
And that is going to be the hardest thing. Yeah, it sounds harsh, but there are going to be some. There are some personal relationships that
I think
are like
it's
that.
a great way to think about it. Honestly, I think you've nailed it on the head pretty much with that. Barnes, do you have anything you want to say about this? Or do you agree?
I don't know. Yeah, I think you've covered it. Yeah. just yeah. I don't think it's like an easy thing to do, and like honestly, this might be a bit like astrology kid esque, honestly, but like, so I think some people just draw bad hands with friend groups. You know, like
Oh,
I'm not gonna lie, I think we've just drawn a very good card.
Tom,
But
that's such a Leo thing to say. I
wow, I
Ah.
so Aries, Gemini, wow.
Hmm.
But I don't know, like obviously, everyone has their own influence and effect on that. And like we've been drawn together, and we all have similar mindsets, obviously through shared time and experiences and whatever.
Mhm.
But like, and you all always are gonna like gravitate together, I think. But like,
Mhm.
yeah,
you've got, I think fundamentally, you've got to have some like core values. Like,
Mhm.
I think like our groups, we have shared core values. Another friend group will have shared core values, and like it's just you've just got to make sure you stay true to your core values, innit? And
yeah,
then yeah,
yeah.
as you said, I think you will naturally just pick up people or pick up groups along the way. But
I suppose for some
yeah,
context, we've known each other for going on 10 years now. Some people longer. You would have known Cam much longer, Murph. Cam and Dan would have known each other for much
Yeah.
longer.
Me and Cam and Dan is about 19, 18,
Yeah,
19 years.
like that is
Yeah.
ridiculous in terms of, you
Relative
know,
to our age as well.
exactly. So the harsh reality is if you go to university and you make some new friends, I guarantee, give it 5 years, you will not be speaking to them. I guarantee it. And ultimately, that is a side effect of the chance that you will have such shared values with someone that you've met from another completely different part of the country who might do another completely different course, who's purely a matter of circumstance that you've even met them because you've been put in the same block or whatever. Is it gonna stick?
I I
a
agree
lot
and
of the time
disagree.
though,
I
yeah.
agree and disagree. So I agree with the fact that I think there's the likelihood's slim. Like we're not looking at a over half percentage chance, right? But equally, I do think that university friendships. So, for instance, if you're with housemates and you do pour an ace out of your ass, and you get someone who's got good core values, very aligned with yours, but then you live with them for 3 years, you can form a bond that's far greater with than a 15-year relationship where you've spoken to them once a week. Because
Yeah, that's
that
true.
quality time together is far more concentrated, and you can feel like you've known this person your whole life when you've only known them for a year and a half at uni. But the chance of that happening is a lot less. Um, and that's maybe also why I went in. Maybe it's an irrational approach. When I came to uni in second year, I was like, I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to socialize with new people because I've got a great friend group at home and I don't really care about making anyone new because I've got the group I want. Do you know what I mean? I
Mm.
Yeah.
don't really want to add anyone else. I don't want to waste my own time because I was working, I was gymming, I was uni. I didn't really have too much spare time. And I knew that if I wasted it trying to make friends with people I didn't really care to even approach, then it's not going to benefit me too much. But equally, I could have missed out on a gem. I really could.
Hmm.
But that's me personally, and maybe that's me being closed minded. But I think, like I said, I think I've been very lucky, and so you guys may feel the same about the friend group we have, which is why I'm inclined to making sure I maintain that over anything, and I don't focus too much on uni friends. But that's me
I
personally.
I don't see us going wrong, to be honest. I think we've gotten past all the hard bits now. People say when we go out into the big wide world, it's going to be worse. I think it'll be better because there's actually a structured time there. Most
Mm.
people are going to be at work Monday to Friday, 9 till 5 in general. So at 7 or 8 o'clock, not you, fella, you'll
Mm.
be in Iraq or something, but for most
Yay.
people, at 8 o'clock at night, well, most of us should be free to have a chat or something, or go on CS:GO or whatever, or we'll all be playing Minecraft in 5 years still. But
That
you
is,
know, in my
that is a fact of life.
it is, and
Minecraft
so
phase every year. Yeah.
you
Clash
know,
Clan season.
it is
Yeah.
what it
Get
is.
on it.
I do agree. I think we're lucky, and we also have games which help with these things because we all come on for certain reasons, and it just happens. But I'm excited for the future in that regard because you can fear it and you can think it's going to be worse off because of this, how work works. We'll have a lot less free time, but I think if our friend group is as strong as what I think it is, I think it will just make us prioritize Barnes breathing. I think it will make us prioritize trying to plan seeing each other more, and it will make the time we spend, whether that be less, it will make it more like that will be a higher quality of time spent. We'll plan things together to do something, and we'll have a good experience. We'll go camping for 3 days because we've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday off because we've booked it off, and that camping
Yeah.
trip will be far better than coming on Discord every night to play 2 hours of this game or that game. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
If we're
So
not
that's
in
what I'm looking
Bangkok
forward to.
City for 2 weeks in 5 years' time, something's gone wrong. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, you're very unique. But my point was that
What?
I don't have this raving urge to go to Bangkok, but
Boring.
true. But my
Actually
point was, is I just think the quality of time we'll spend together in later life, because of the bonds we've built at this age, will just be far better. But that's my opinion. I hope that reigns true. I really do.
Basically, stay tuned. It's nothing. It's all constantly up from here. Year and a little bit. We'll all be in Vietnam doing the
True.
pod.
Oh,
Vietnam.
Vietnam
Oh,
pod.
we get the fucking what is it? What's that song called, man? remember
Fortunate
that.
Son.
Yeah, Fortunate Son. Get that blaring and get hire a helicopter out together.
Oh.
But
We fully
No.
could do that.
that would be
We
hilarious.
fully could do that.
I'm sure that wouldn't upset anyone.
No, I think it'd be funny. But my point is, and this is maybe something I want to go on to as well with the pod. I think some of us boys, us three here, Dan, maybe some others who we haven't named yet, we would love to go camping or do Three Peaks Challenge and all these different things. And I think it would be a great idea if we could somewhat set up something where we could record and do a podcast while camping, or do a podcast while we hike, or something like that, or form maybe not a pod, but some content of us all, maybe like a vlog or something, just to like share the experience of doing it all. Because I think we've given a lot of our personalities out in these podcasts. I think it would be something that I'm interested in making. I don't know whether the people who are listening would be interested also, but like just going through an arduous experience and just seeing our reaction to it as a group. Do you know what I mean? I think that would be quite fun for all of us.
It would definitely be cool, but I sort of had this idea of we could do another. I'd say the average pod length is like an hour and a half, hour 45, and
Yeah.
if we did sort of a collage of snippeted clips put together during the course of an expedition or something that was about that long, that would be quite cool. But then also, are you able to consume that in the same way you would consume this pod? You can't just listen to it on Spotify if it's us hiking around the mountains. Like,
It'd have to be like
you could do like
35 minutes, I reckon.
No, you could do like little like voice note entries. Right, it's 8:00. Saturday 26th.
that might be quite cool.
Currently, we are. And then just
We're all
snip them
pissed off.
together.
Yeah.
It's shit. It's raining.
Dan
fell
Dan's
off the
been
cliff.
wriggling the whole night, calling himself an earthworm.
Murph
We can
Shadow
speak on-
House.
I mean, that happens anyway. But that's the thing, man. I'm hoping that we can get to a point where we could document some of that stuff. Because personally, when I'm consuming content on YouTube, I love all of that. I don't know if you guys know Shy or like Dying Llama, these like urban explorers, stuff like that. I find that content really therapeutic and really good. And I think we could, as a group, formulate. Maybe if we did, I think it'd be sick if we all did like a solo hike where we're all recording our progress and shit, and we could amalgamate them together, so we all wake up at the same time and shit. We don't contact each other, stuff like that. We can just do stuff like that. I think
we're racing to somewhere, or we're all supposed to meet up, but it's like, oh, it's been 4 hours. Where's Cam?
Like a Top Gear special, but for us lot.
Still at home in the shower.
I'm leaving in a minute, but no, fully.
I'll be there soon.
I'm on the way.
But stuff like that, I think would be really interesting for us to do.
We should fully do a Top Gear special, like Botswana,
Vietnam,
Botswana.
special.
Buy a car there. We'll see where we end up.
That's it. That's the only plan. We know where the car is. Go.
Got a bit of moolah. That's about it. No TV crew to worry about.
Lots to look forward to.
Yeah, no, I think
Stay
it's a good place to wrap it up here, boys. I think as well, because we're pretty much on the target time of about an hour and 45 minutes. But thank you for the podcast today, boys. I think it's been a really successful one. Thanks for coming on. Have you got anything you want to say, Barnes, to finish off?
Pick up the fork.
Anything else? Maybe drink some water?
Nah.
All right, don't
Not
drink water,
today.
Steve, but pick up the
Just
fucking fork.
Pepsi Max for Murph.
Oh, one second.
Unspoken
You know I've got
addiction.
it.
Oh.
That's
Oh, no.
his addiction,
Ah.
boys.
To conclude, that is my addiction. Pepsi Max is my addiction. I'm aware of it. Just trying to work on it. That's what we're saying.
We've all got our vices.
Everyone has their vices. Everyone's got their own little hiccups. But yeah,
You
boys.
got to get better taste in fizzy
Oh,
drinks.
Fanta hell, bro. Oh.
No, Fanta's just so much better.
Fanta's good. It's not Pepsi Max though, bro.
You already-
Oh,
this
Ethan's
is-
got something.
What is that?
Oh, ginger beer.
Oh,
No,
Ginger
he's
beer's
so
S tier.
annoying.
I don't care.
No,
It's
end
S
it
tier.
there.
It's
End
S
it
tier.
there.
I think we
End
have
it
to
there.
end it there.
End-
I'm
end
so
it there.
sorry. Yeah, sorry you guys had to see
is
that.
just annoying.
Yeah, all right.
So
Well,
good.
we'll be back next week. But cheers, boys.
Yeah, buddy.